Welcome to The Art of Relationships. This podcast is produced by the Biola University Center for Marriage and Relationships. Let's get right into it.
Well, Lisa, welcome to another Art of Relationships podcast. What a cool opportunity we get to talk about all things relationships. And it's just fun. It's fun to do it. And I'm so glad it's sponsored by Biola University Center for Marriage and Relationships here at the campus of Biola University. And one of the cool things that started this whole center, Lisa, was the idea of relationships and students, faculty, staff, and others out in the world that might be dealing with, common relationship issues, but they really don't have a lot of perspectives, especially those that might come from not just a biblical perspective, which in and of itself is enough, but we bring in some scientific research. We back it with what, my training is a psychologist, yours is in communication, and we founded this center to say, let's look at biblical truths, right, augmented by what science has been finding and showing, and then make it practical for people.
And we've been doing this for like 35 years. Yeah. So for a long time.
Yeah, in fact, we invented podcasts. You don't know that, but we are the inventors.
We go way back before podcasts, don't we?
Yeah, and then we'll tell you what that means later at the end of the day. Yeah, okay, so hey, let's do this, Lisa. One of the topics that we get to deal with because we are professors and run a center at a university is the notion of friendships, especially friendships that are newer or at the young stage but with college students. Yeah. But this applies to friendships across the board.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk specifically about some of the challenges, some of the issues, and some of the benefits of what it means to, be in a new environment, a new place like college, and how to make friends.
Yeah, because isn't college such a unique time in life? I mean, so for the first time, you're living away from home for the first time. You're becoming more independent apart from your parents. You're developing, having to develop a whole new community of support, right? Because you're in a new town, new church, new friends, new place that you're living. You're having to live with somebody that's not your family. And boy, that can be a challenge. And then you're having to make a whole new set of friends. So that can be really challenging. Yeah,
those are challenges. And what are the benefits? Well, you're living away from home for the first time. You're growing, right? You're growing independent from your parents, right? Yeah. A whole new community support. You're living with someone not in your family, and you have a whole new set of friends. I mean, in reality, it's the opposite of that, right? It's, these are the benefits.
Exactly. It's interesting. The same things that can seem like challenges, if you approach them from a different perspective and a different outlook, they actually can become benefits and opportunities for growth.
Yeah. Okay. So, I'm from the state of Colorado, born and raised there, and grew up with friends and family, nearby, and enjoyed high school, Well, anyway, decided at very last minute to, instead of going to CU with a roommate I already had picked out.
In Boulder, right?
In Boulder. Get a call from my dad, who was living in Las Vegas at the time, and said, Chris, why don't you come out and go to school at UNLV? Yeah. They have a great baseball team. It turned out they were so good that... and I wasn't, that it decided okay, am I really going to be able to play D1 baseball at UNLV? And I didn't. But all that to say, I went, and I was so alone. I didn't live in a dorm. I moved in with my dad and his new wife, had a great room, Eventually, it caught up to me after about 4 days. It's like, all right, this is going to be lonely. Yeah. And I remember going, this is not what I'm used to. This is hard.
Yeah.
You went to Baylor.
Yeah.
And you grew up in Lubbock mostly.
Yeah. So I went about 5 hours away to Waco, freshman at Baylor. But I lived in the dorm, and I was still incredibly lonely. That was such a hard transition because I was so connected in high school to to the community, really connected at church. And so to move away from home for the first time, to be on my own, it was tough. It was a tough transition.
And doesn't it feel so random the way many of us get assigned a roommate? You know, it's like you just, all right, well, I'll just go with whoever. I don't know anybody going to the school. None of my friends.
Yeah, I didn't know my roommate going on.
And then all of a sudden you move in and it's a psycho, right? Or it could be.
It can be. We did that podcast, The Horror Stories of Roommates. So check that one out if you haven't. There's some doozies.
Yeah, and then it could be this natural, wonderful time. New friends, you make friends for life, whatever.
Yeah.
And yet there are many who experience loneliness. And I think, Lisa, that the opposite of friendship, right? It's not you're unfriendly. It's not that you make enemies everywhere. Really, it's loneliness.
Yeah.
And it's isolation. So I remember thinking it was so bad. I would just wait and see after class, sit around, hope someone would, I'd meet someone from my class. And I just wasn't used to going out and taking initiative and effort.
Yeah.
And
you were Mr. Big Man on campus in high school, weren't you?
Oh yeah, we had 12 people in our graduating class.
Sure.
And I was at least number 8 on the top list. No,
You just didn't know what to do with yourself when the cheerleaders didn't know who you were. In college, right?
No, we had 500 in our graduating class. And you're right. Friendships came easy.
Yeah.
But this was a challenge. And so what happens then when you're dealing with a difficult situation of not making friends?
Yeah, and it can be super hard. But here's the thing, too, that I think is important to keep in mind is research shows that those friendships in college that you're forming, even though it's hard, it is so worth it. Because research shows that students that have a good connection of friendship, good community of friendship, actually do better academically, and they have higher rates of graduation. They're much more likely to graduate.
Yeah, study after study show that, right?
Yeah.
And so what do you do when you find yourself in that situation? Maybe it's already, the semester's over, maybe you're beginning, 3-4 months of having friendship. There's got to be some things. And here's what we recommend. Let's start with a couple of things. I think, first of all, Lise, the thing that a person needs to do is recognize, this is like a blank slate. This is a new opportunity. It's like not reinventing yourself, but it's kind of like, you know what? I'm going to lean into this. I'm going to lean into this new part of me. And I think that idea is, all right, let's take it, like you said, as, well, it's a challenge, but there's also some benefits. And it's a time to kind of start afresh.
Yeah. I totally felt that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what worked, what didn't work, and what are some suggestions? I mean, you've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about this. We have kids that have, gone through this or going through this.
And we have students come in all the time that talk about this kind of challenge.
All right, Lise, what was the first thing you start to say?
Well, I think if we look at what makes it harder to make friendships in college, we talked about that it really is a unique time. And one of the things that makes it unique is that you're a little bit more socially isolated, and for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you're an introvert or you have some social anxiety, that can kind of do a number on you. Where it's just hard to take that initiative and step out.
Yeah, Lisa, you would be the opposite of introvert. I would be more middle of the road, slightly introverted. And so even for you, though, as an extrovert, it was hard. So let alone, introversion is just can be a killer because you're not comfortable. It's a little bit awkward reaching out. I remember feeling like I don't want to be shut down. And I forgot one of the key things we're going to talk about in a minute. I forgot and did not know that I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only one. There were other people around me that were lonely. And all I had to do was reach out to them and they would have went, oh my gosh, Thank you. I don't have anybody to have lunch with. I don't have a dinner friend. That's awesome. But I just thought I was the only one.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that as an introvert. Okay, Lisa, there are a lot of things that make it a challenge, right? I think one that we all know is that feeling of loneliness, even isolation, right? It's almost like social isolation. And that's, but by the way, if you want to punish anybody, one of the strongest, most effective means of breaking people down, if that, now I'm talking extreme. If you had somebody you had to break down, it would be to isolate them.
Yeah.
I mean, even prisons no longer can use isolation except in extreme cases because the damage socially, emotionally, psychologically, these people are huge. We just take them away from other people.
Yeah. Well, and when we talk about that kind of social isolation, that's a couple of reasons. First of all, you have all these people that have different classes on different schedules, right? Just because you have history at 10 o'clock, I may have history class at 3 o'clock. Right? So we have different classes. You're a different major than what my major is. And so we're taking totally different classes, different times. And we may even have different study times, right? Perfect time for me to go to the library is at 5 o'clock in the evening. Yours might be 10 o'clock in the evening. And so that isolation is very different from high school, where you tend to see the same people all the time, at least in closer confines, mostly the same classes. I mean, there's only going to be 5 English classes instead of, 200 classes offered at the same time.
Yeah, and then throw in a particular interest or gifting. And so let's say you are a great musician or you like studying music. Well, you're going to do that probably in the afternoons while your roommate might be running track or playing soccer.
Right.
And it's like, okay, now I'm with a whole bunch of other people that I don't really know. I want to get to know, but it's hard. So yeah, social isolation can be really hard.
Yeah, and I think another reason is because in college, for the most part, you can be much more focused on academics. Now, there are those that come to college with the idea of don't let school get in the way of your education. Right?
I had a buddy like that who he just was so cool. His name, well, I shouldn't say his name. Yeah, why not? It's Jack. And he was the funnest kid around in the dorm, right? So my second year, I moved from that isolating, horrible place, of being alone at UNLV, and I transferred to try and play baseball at University of Northern Colorado. Also didn't work out very well. But my first days in the dorm, there was one guy who stood out. His name was Jay. He just was fun. We played on intramural football teams together, played basketball together, but everybody loved Jack.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because Jack loved everybody, but he also loved hanging out with people, and he didn't love academics. And so he never did anything. So he left after the first semester, I think.
Oh,
yeah, because life in the dorms for him was like, all right, this is a social time.
He was having a little too much fun.
He was having a little too much fun. And not being a Christian back then for me, the other people are having fun where those are like, this is party central, man.
Yeah, they're a different kind of fun.
Yeah, and so you're right. We have now those, you have to focus a lot more on some academics, and that could be isolating too.
Right, because you're choosing to invest your time and your attention in your priority of school rather than on your social circle.
Yeah, and let's not also forget that could also involve a relationship that you may have brought with you to college. You're spending time with them every weekend. You go away with them or see them.
That's a great point.
And, like maybe even starting a relationship and your roommates are like, dude, what's up? So I remember starting a relationship with the girl in the dorm that first semester I lived there. And, I was excited to live with my roommate. He's awesome, great guy. And we had all kinds of fun friends. But within about 2 months, I started kind of getting interested in this girl, started dating, and that kind of separated them out. In fact, my roommate kind of called me on it. It's like, Gracie, man, you're always spending time with that girl. I miss our time together, in essence, is what he's saying. Yeah, I know, but have you seen this girl? And he's like, oh, yeah, I've seen her. Still being isolating. Anyway.
Stupid girl. But, that's a good point. Also, when we tend to focus so much only on our existing high school relationships, and we keep going back to them, that we don't take the opportunity to invest in new friendships, the new people that we're meeting.
Yeah. I think people that are loyal might have a difficult time with that. Like, I have these friends, I want to keep them for life. I've known them since third grade,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. But that can lead to this isolation.
Yeah.
What's another thing that you see going on besides social or isolation like that?
Well, I think it can be really hard to adapt to a new environment sometimes, right? So all of a sudden, you're coming into contact with a whole new, wider array of diverse people. They have diverse viewpoints, different cultural backgrounds, different majors that they're going into. And so it can just be hard to accommodate all this new information with new people, new expectations, new cultural, social norms that you just didn't have in high school.
It's funny. It could be something that, big, of course, like different views on very important things like religion or, something, that's powerful. Let's say today it's politics, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, that's different. My first one that was different was small. I remember this guy in Las Vegas. I met him. He helps me get a job at a great restaurant, like good on the Strip. And so good guy, very influential. But I remember one day we were sitting back there during work as busboys, right? Very, very luxurious, expensive restaurant. People like Jerry Lewis, if you remember that comedian from way gone, he would be in there.
So a lot of celebrities.
A lot of celebrities. Okay, so anyway, we're in the back, taking a small break, and he has. I remember I liked him because he liked chocolate milk, and so did I, and so we would just drink milk, whatever. Well, one day we go back there, and all of a sudden I see him put ice cubes in his milk, and I went, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "What?"
Yes.
And he goes, "My milk's not warm." And I go, "But you can't put ice in a glass of milk." And he's like,
yes, you can.
and he's like, "Why not?" And I'm like, "Because that's weird." And he goes, "It's not weird." And I go, "What? Then waters it down." It blew. Okay, something so small. He was like kind of offended, like, "Well, I'll take him out if you want." No, I don't mean that. And then, sure enough, within about 2 months, I'm putting ice cubes there. Okay, anything different, we're exposed to these new cultural.
Right. And I think also in adapting to that new environment, there can be a real fear of rejection, right? That, people aren't going to like, and that can tap in also into that social anxiety for a lot of people. But I'm so different. Nobody's going to like me. Nobody notices me. I'm invisible here. And so to really be willing to put yourself out there, to take the initiative in building friendships, if you're so afraid of rejection, that can be a real stumbling block for a lot of people.
Yeah, it could be very difficult, and you have to really recognize that there is something to that fear, right? Social isolation could result. People will not like me. I'll reach out, be vulnerable, and they'll reject me. And it's like, oh my goodness. So yeah, that could be hard. And at least it could be really hard for a subset, that are introverted, right?
Yeah, it really can. It can be tough. And especially when you're sitting in a large lecture hall, let's say like sometimes your intro to a psych class, even at a small private university, can be 300 or 400 people. Yeah. So if you're going to a big state university, you could have, 700, 800, 1,000 people in one lecture hall, right? And so that could be really hard to connect with that many people.
Yeah, and there are not a lot of people that are going to want to, raise their hand, talk, make themselves known. Most of them just will never speak, and that's normal. But you can also then find to be isolating, like, oh my gosh, I don't know anybody in here. And everybody else seems to have friends. Those two all know each other. These guys always come in together. They're always laughing.
Can feel like that.
I'm by myself.
Yeah, that's tough. That's really hard.
Yeah, so, let's real quickly too, right, that personality differences that we all have.
Yeah, if you're really shy, you're just naturally shy. That is so hard to put yourself out there to go take the initiative. It's so much more comfortable to sit, be quiet. And unfortunately, the outcome of that is that you're going to feel invisible. You're going to feel alone.
Well, shyness, most people do experience this, not to an extreme, but right, it's hard in new situations. You weren't shy, you weren't introverted, and yet you felt this. So tell us a little bit about that. Did you go, okay, I tried to reach out to people, or I'm just going to be me, or I'm just going to, and it was hard.
Yeah. Even as an extrovert, it's a little intimidating to walk into, you're moving into a new environment. You're going from high school to college, which can already be a little intimidating and scary. And so, meeting new people, putting yourself out there, risking that rejection, even as an extrovert, that was still tough for me.
Imagine then multiplying that by many when you are not extrovert, right? The shyness has gotten me places, or maybe not shyness, well, no, a little bit, and then you're not comfortable yet in who you are and what you stand for and what you're going to be. Okay, Lisa, those are some things. Anything else that you would say is another cause?
Yeah, I would say one other thing might be like a lack of time and energy, because you're just so busy. I mean, oftentimes you're taking 15, 18 units. You may be working part-time, you're studying, you're trying to manage all these different relationships. You still want to, interact with family if they're close enough by. You're trying to connect with new people, and you're just so tired and you're worn out. Because I remember especially living in the dorm, or it seemed like all through college, I never ever went to bed before 1 a.m. Did you?
Well,
and everybody was up that.
Well, everybody was up late, and it was loud for poor people that wanted to go to bed at 10. They either got out of that or
There's no way.
Yeah, you couldn't do it unless you put in headphones or earphones or earplugs, something. No, I remember, and that was also the social time when people would get together.
Yeah.
But you would also feel like, wow, everybody's doing the same thing, having fun, and here I am.
That you're just worn out sometimes, and you just need rest, or you need time apart, and so that can really hamper the ability to form new friendships.
Yeah, good. Well, I think those are some of the keys. Now let's talk a little bit about what would you do, and what advice would you have for parents of college students who are struggling with this. I think of those that are themselves going through it or went through it, or maybe even as adults are like, how do I reach out? First of all, I think, Lise, I remember what solved my loneliness issues was transferring to another school and moving into the dorms my sophomore year instead. And I knew my roommate, and we immediately started bonding with the guys on the floor.
Yeah.
And that right there was awesome. And I felt like, okay, this is college. This is what it's like. But some people don't have that. So
Right. But we would say, I think what you're saying is, if at all possible, if it's financially feasible and you have the option to either live in the dorm or live at home, I would definitely come and live in the dorm or the apartments on campus or something where there's a group of students that are all living together.
Yep, perfect. Second thing that many universities do very well is they have a mix, most universities do, of on-campus students, that is those who live in the dorm, and off-campus, those
commuters.
And many universities have like a particular location for those that commute. Find your university. Biola has one. We have a commuter student lounge. It's so cool.
Beautiful too.
Many of these places do have social events, times of gathering for meals, other events that they do together that are designed exclusively for those that commute into school. So go to your university, talk to somebody and find out, hey, where do commuter students, what do you have for them? I guarantee you, your university knows about loneliness, social isolation, introversion, and commuter students. And that mix is something they're trying to go, all right, come together with people that you know and like. So find that place where you can fit, even if you're a commuter student, right? And in the dorm, be willing and able to start reaching out and trying, these groups that these people share this in common.
Well, that's a beautiful thing about college, too, is that there's so many groups usually on campus that either the affinity is a hobby that you enjoy doing. It could be athletics. It could be,
academic areas.
Well,
Right?
it could be social clubs. It could be ministry clubs. There's all sorts of clubs on campus. And so check out those clubs that are available and get involved. Pick one or two or three to go visit, try them out, and then hone in on one or two. I wouldn't probably do more than that, because then you just start, you're a mile wide and only an inch deep. So pick one or two that you could really focus on.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't know anything about, let's say, the group that are interested in politics, and you're like, well, okay, but my friend is going there, or someone invited me. Yeah, go check it out. Go try. You might actually find a new interest. But Lisa, that takes some initiative, and I think that's another big thing that a person needs to get over. Is okay. Yep, I'm going to risk being vulnerable. I'm going to risk being rejected. But taking the initiative may be one of the hardest but the best things you could do.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about taking the initiative, it could be in just starting and initiating a conversation with somebody. I mean, imagine that you're walking into class and you always see that person sitting alone. They never talk to anybody. What if you go, instead of sitting where you normally do, why don't you go sit by that person and just strike up a conversation? Introduce yourself, ask them, what's your major? Where'd you come from? Why are you taking this class? And just begin the conversation. Or maybe it's somebody in the cast that you see sitting alone. Well, you take the initiative. Go and sit down and say, hey, do you mind if I join you? Are you sitting with anybody? Hey, me either. Can I join you?
Yeah. Hey, so if you want a practical thing on this, ready? We have created two things.
Yeah.
One, this very common saying now among us, at least here at the center, and we talk about, is it's better to be interested than interesting.
Yeah.
All right, ready? Too many students are like, oh my, I have to be interesting. I'll attract more friends, or I need to perfect this joke I have, or I need to think about how to do this, and one of the things that you just suggested is, hey, just be interested. Go ask questions. I love that. So A, it's better to be interested than interesting. B, take the initiative. Find out. If you want, we have a list of questions you can ask people, right?
Yeah. We actually have a really great resource called, something about great open-ended questions. I forget. For different kinds of situations.
You can find that on our website.
You sure can, and download that. We have another resource called It's Just Coffee, where, if you see somebody that you might be interested in, that you think is cute, that you'd like to get to know a little better, well, you can just take these little questions and, hey, I'm not asking you to get married. You just seem like a really cool person. I'd love to get to know you a little better. Would you just like to go grab coffee sometime?
Yeah, we call it It's Just Coffee. In fact, we require it. We have about, 100 and some students in one class every spring. And every student is required to go and ask two people out, not ask them out, but just go ask them to have coffee.
Yeah.
And they take a questionnaire thing with them, say, hey, I have to do this for a class. Would you mind go getting coffee? It could be really cool. All right, Lisa, I love these. One more. Go ahead with this idea.
Yeah, with the taking initiative, it might be the taking initiative to connect with a small group. Yeah. Maybe you take the initiative to start a study group of people in your class, and you just invite people. Hey, you want to join our study group?
Yeah. I love that.
Maybe a Bible study. Maybe a group just going out to the movies or something. Whatever activities you're doing, be the initiator and invite other people, because so many people are just waiting to be asked.
Yeah, and they would love that.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. Well, when it comes to money and marriage, we all want clarity and confidence, right? And especially unity with spouses, right? I think, Lisa, that's why we get to work personally with Colby Gilmore of Blue Trust.
That's right. Colby Gilmore, along with other Blue Trust certified wealth strategists, offers personalized, biblically centered financial planning and investment management services, no matter what your income level is.
Lisa, say that title twice. Blue Trust Certified Wealth Strategist. That's a tough
I'm not sure I could.
I know. So they do put clients' best interest first, and they don't sell financial products. I love that about them.
Me too. And you know what? We highly recommend Colby Gilmore and Blue Trust for anyone looking for both financial unity with your spouse and opportunities to increase your wealth and your generosity.
Yeah. So if you guys want to check out ronblue.com or reach out to Colby Gilmore at colby.gilmore at ronblue.com. That's colby.gilmore at ronblue.com. I think you guys will be glad you did. Yeah, so this idea, at least take an initiative with, that idea of being, it's better to be interested than interesting. We have these resources, it's just coffee. I remember we were at a school, let's call it Berkeley, and we were speaking, and we were talking about the psychology of relationships and communication ideas about relationships. And this place was packed. We got invited to go up there. It was awesome to speak to the students. At the very end, they didn't know we were Christian, and had a biblical worldview till the very end. We told them, and it went great. In fact, we were invited back the next year. It was way cool. Well, first kid came up afterwards. We said, hey, we'll take questions. We took some from the audience, and then we said, if you still have questions, come on up. First kid came up, and I figured, well, just told them we're Christian. We're here at Berkeley. They might kind of, rebel a little bit against that. But the first kid came up, Muslim kid, and I'll never forget what he asked. I thought he was going to blast me. He stood up there, looked agitated, a little bit stressed, a little bit nervous. I think, all right, bring it on. What's up, dude? And he goes, yeah, I got a question for you. Like, okay, go ahead. And he says, yeah, I don't know how to talk to girls. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, all right, well, all right, I can handle that one. I'll tell you what. Here's my best piece of advice. A lot of us, and when you're in college, you're trying to make friends and you don't know how. And I told him the phrase, it's better to be interested than interesting. And what that means is you go up, ask questions, talk to them. You don't have to be, sometimes we try and have the perfect response and we have to have perfect stories and we have to carry the conversation.
Witty and funny.
Yeah, be witty. And this struck him and he just kind of like, his eyes got wider and he goes, he's, first of all, he says, I can't talk to girls very well. And I go, oh, are you an engineering major? And he goes, how did you know? And I said, just a lucky guess, Berkeley, And he goes, yeah, I am. I go, okay, so it's better to be interested. And I go, do you know anybody in here, that you can maybe go try this out with? And he looked around the room of, 200 or 300 people that are now dispersing. And he goes, well, I know that girl back there. I go, well, go try it. Alisa, I'm not kidding. 15, maybe 20 minutes later, I'm still answering questions up front. That kid is still talking to the same girl.
They're still going.
And they're still talking. And I'm like, there it is. And, he's married today to her. And
No, sir.
I have no idea if he is or not. Wouldn't that be a cool story? But at least 20 minutes later, someone who says he doesn't know how to talk to girls is still talking to that girl simply by employing one of these techniques of just going,
asking good questions. Yeah.
Questions. What's another thing we can do then if we feel some of these isolations and we feel like we're maybe not designed for this? And all right, we get that. What another recommendation real quick would you give?
Well, I think, like we were talking about, that coming away to college for the first time could be that time, kind of that do-over, that start over. And this is a perfect time to really be authentic and really show who you are and being true to yourself of who you are, the things you enjoyed, your likes, your dislikes, your hopes, and your dreams, because there are so many new people out there. You are bound to connect with people who really click with you, you click with them, and they love you for who you are, not for who you're faking to be. Yeah. And so really just be yourself, venture out there and be willing to be vulnerable, be authentic.
I love that. So this kid that I mentioned before, Jack, he was just so fun, so engaging. But really what it was is because he recognized you, said hi, and but he would talk to you. And I remember thinking, okay, I like that. And he would bring out, so how you doing today? What's going on with you? Ask. And it made me feel like, okay, I could share with this guy. And we had a lot in common. Unfortunately, He liked the Eagles, Philadelphia. I know, I was a Bronco fan, but he turned out to be this great tight end, and we actually went 6-0 in our intramural debut.
Wow.
Lost in the quarterfinals, but that's another story.
Uh-oh.
But all that to say, I remember thinking, all right, find that person who brings out that kind of best in you, that person that you want to be, and hang out with them. Do what they want. If you're like, I click with that person, like, hey, man, I love this interest in this game or, this sport or this hobby or this instrument or this area of study. It'd be fun to get to know you more. So.
Yeah. And you remember that old TV show that it was really big, like in the 80s and 90s, called Cheers.
Oh, yeah.
And part of the theme song of that TV show was, you want to go where everybody knows your name. Nobody wants to be invisible, right? And so one of the ways that you can make friends more quickly is by remembering people's names and then calling them by name. Time and again, as we travel, we meet people. Sometimes we reconnect in different places. And I find it incredibly refreshing when somebody remembers my name that I haven't seen in a long time. And I also notice that when I remember other people's names, they are really taken aback and genuinely, appreciative. Wow, I can't believe you remember my name. And you can be, of course I do. But to really make the effort to ask their name, repeat it a couple of times when you meet them, and then call them out the next time you see them across the room or you sit down. Remember their name and their use it. And nobody wants to be invisible.
No, that's great. So when you are being interested, take note of it, right? And you're asking them questions, and go back, write them down, make a note. Like, all right, this guy's cool. I remember this, and he talked about, how his brother is doing this, Y, and Z. I'll ask how his brother's next time.
Remember the details. Maybe write them down after you've connected with somebody for the first time. I remember hearing a story of somebody whose dad did this. They kept a little notebook with them, and you can keep a note on your iPhone or something. But they would write down the person's name, where they met them, and one or two things that the person mentioned, and then he would review them every now and then. And then the next time he ran into that person, like if you're going to see them in class, you could see them in church or at the gym or something like that, he would remember their name, and then he would remember to ask about those one or two things. Yeah. And people loved him. Yeah. They just thought he was the most wonderful, friendliest, oh boy, he makes you feel like you're the only person in the room.
Yeah, that's great. The only caution at the extreme is a word that we use called stalking. Do not get to a point like, hey, by the way, I looked at every one of your Instagram to posts, and I think God's calling us to be married. I don't even know you.
Yeah, don't do that.
No, yeah. So we're not talking about that. I do remember, Lisa, the power of a name. One time in my class, I have to get to know so many names. I work at it because of that. I know it's important. But sometimes if I meet somebody for the first time, I'll just say something like, hey, kid, nice to meet you, And so, hey, kid, how you doing? And this guy goes, I'm not a kid. And I go, oh, no, I just kind of call everybody that. I'm sorry. He goes, but I'm like 18. I go, no, you're right. My bad.
You could be a little too serious.
Yeah, a little too literal. So anyway, I got to know his name, and that helped a lot. So, okay, Lisa, let's wrap up with one last thing that you would do.
Yeah, I think it's If you find that you're struggling, if you are really not connecting and you're feeling just overwhelming, that loneliness, one of the options is to don't be afraid to seek help.
Yeah.
Go to seek support. There are all different departments on campus for this, but like here at Biola, we have the Center for Marriage and Relationships where students can get, and in fact, you don't even have to go to this university, right? Anybody can call and set an appointment and do it by Zoom, or you can come and meet with a trusted, trained professional to talk it over. That somebody that can kind of coach you, help you come up with some strategies that can be a good sounding board for you. Maybe give you some things to think about or consider of how you might try a different approach, and somebody that just can help you reframe it like we were talking about at the beginning. Yeah, you're experiencing these tough situations, but you know what? Actually, if you approach it from this different mindset, it could really be an opportunity for growth. And so sign up for one of those things. We call them free relationship advice. You can go on our website at cmr.biola.edu and click on the free relationship advice, and we have appointments. We have marriage and family therapists. We have pastoral care and counselor, Chris and myself available. But you can come by the office and see us in person, but it's free. You get a whole hour for free.
And I think, yeah, it's why we exist. It's for that. We tend to see students all the time with that. One final note, if you are not in this area, if you're listening in Michigan and Florida or somewhere else, or your child's at school somewhere else, there are resources there, Lisa, student development. It might be called student affairs. It might be an RD. It might be the president of a particular club. Reach out, talk to somebody. Even, many faculty and staff actually enjoy going out to coffee or hanging out with the student. The student says, hey, doctor, professor, whatever, would you like to get coffee sometime?
Yeah, we just had in our relationships class, we just had 3 of the gals that invited me and 2 of our other professors to join them for coffee. That was just a couple of weeks ago.
And you can do that. Just reach out, do these things, and you can start kind of turning this opportunity, these challenges into opportunities.
And, Chris, I think I would really encourage people as we wrap this up, not only don't be afraid to reach out and get some support, but I think the very first place that we would start is praying for your friendships, praying for relationships, asking the Lord to prepare the way before you, to set some divine appointments with certain people that He would intend for you to have some really deep, profound, and meaningful relationships with in college. And so trusting the Lord with that and inviting Him into that and asking for His help. He delights to do that.
Gosh, not only is that so cool, in the Old Testament at least, there were 2 people that God called friends. One was Abraham. Who was the other one? It was Moses, right?
Moses.
All the friends. In the New Testament, the most powerful, I think one of the most powerful verses of all, John 13, 34 and 35 says, no longer do I call you servants, says Jesus, but friends.
Yeah.
Right? And think about that. Here's the God that created the universe saying, you're my friend. Lisa, I think your idea of praying, talking, God knows that. He sets this up. Friendship is important. A friendship with Him, it sometimes starts there. Find those that are like, all right, I like this. That you know Jesus, I know Jesus. That gives us all we need in common.
And then pay attention throughout your day. See the times that God sets appointments for you with other people that you just happen to cross paths. Don't overlook that. Don't miss it. But Psalm 116 verse 1 says, I love the Lord because He hears and He answers my prayers. Because He bends down to listen, I will pray as long as I have breath. So
imagine picturing God bending down to listen.
Yeah. And say, you need a friend? Boom, I got your back.
Yeah, it starts there. That's awesome. I love that. Great advice. Great topic. Lisa, there are more they can find on our website if you have interest in this. We got the questions to intimacy you can ask
For friends.
spiritual intimacy questions.
Open-ended questions, great open-ended questions for different situations. So check out that website again at cmr.biola.edu. And we really encourage you to share this podcast with a friend. Hit that like button. We really appreciate that. Really helps our algorithms. Anything else, Chris?
No, smash that.
Pow, 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 pow. Do it right now.
Hey, it's been fun to join you, Lise.
Thanks.
Great podcast, topic. We'll have more of these. Keep listening. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
We're very glad you joined us for today's podcast. For more resources on marriage and healthy relationships, please visit our website at cmr.biola.edu. We'll see you next time on The Art of Relationships.